Ross, it's good to have you again on Metal Assault. So you guys are about to put out your 10th album, Atonement. 10 albums already, man. Like, did you even realize that it's been that many?
Yeah, we didn't either. I mean, we know it's been a long time, but when you actually stop and you think about it, it's like, wow, it's going to be 29 years in February when this album comes out, and it'll be our 10th. So, yeah, man, the time goes, man.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, 29 years and 10 albums, that's a pretty good rate of output. But that said, I think in the first few years of the band, it wasn't as frequent. Like, the first three albums, I think, took like 10 years or something like that. Do you think it's gotten easier for you guys over the years to write new music?
Uh, yes and no. I mean, there's always your little hiccups, your little struggles with each cycle, and that applies to this one as well. I mean, this one took 4 years. This one took a lot longer. We originally intended for this one to be out at the end of 2015, but we had a bout of the writer's block, so we had to step away from the writing for a time until we were kind of re-inspired, until Bob had that inspiration again to start churning out the riffs. And also during that time, our drummer Steve broke his ankle in September of last year. September 2015. I keep forgetting we're in 2017 already,
Right.
So we had a few little hiccups that kind of pushed us back, but I think in the end though it was something that was beneficial, because although we had the hiccups and we had the stalls, it allowed us more time to really focus on the crafting the songs how we wanted them, and we weren't necessarily racing against the clock this time. So we had that extra time for the writing and for the production, which was I think essential in making this album, I think, what it is now. But yeah, getting back to the original question, yeah, we're averaging about three albums, 3 years per album.
Yeah.
And we did have that long, 5-year gap in between the first and the second record, and that was mainly due to label changes. So anyway, everybody knows the story there. So
Yeah, right. So now everything is good with the drummer, and you were able to finish the record and everything, right? With him.
Yeah. He had 6 months of rehabilitation. He had surgery. He had a couple of metal rods and plates put in his leg, and it was a long road for him. But he was he was ready just before we toured with Marduk last May in Europe, and then he came back and he was pretty much ready to go for the record. He had a couple of weeks, and then we went in to record the record. So yeah, he actually came out of it, really well, man. He did really good. So
Yeah, and you guys, I mean, you guys have kind of had a tight knit unit for a number of years, so it's not like you wanted to just move on to the next available drummer.
No,
obviously. Yeah.
No, definitely not. You know us well enough. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a family. This is like a family, man. So and everybody who's part of the band, whether they're playing in the band or working with the band for years, I mean, everybody's kind of part of that extended family. And yeah, sure. I mean, we didn't we would wait. We'd wait a year if we had to. You know what I'm saying? To make sure he was ready and better, especially if he wanted to continue, which he did, So, I'm just glad he turned it around as quickly as he did. And, I mean, that was a tremendous effort on his part. So,
Right.
Much props, man. Much props to Steve for that one.
Yeah, exactly. Talking of creating new music, I mean, people these days people think that it's not important to make new music, especially for older bands that can still play the old stuff. But I feel the opposite, because it's like this is how you keep on people's minds when you keep coming out with new albums. So do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, we're very proud of our earlier work. It's still part of who we are. It's kind of a slow evolution for us, So, but I agree. I think writing fresh material, new material, and trying to kind of push it to the next level with each release, and try to create something new and unique without kind of deviating from that template you've already laid down. I mean, that's always a welcome challenge for us. It's something we always look forward to. We always enjoy playing the new material live, for example, more than the old material, and not because we dislike the old material, but just that we've been doing it for some of those songs over 30 years, so you can understand that it's nice to play something fresh that's a little more challenging because it's new, and we're doing different things, and it's Yeah, I mean, it's always nice. I never wanted to be, one of the bands that always relied on those earlier works to kind of, you know, continue on with that legacy. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
think we're just as strong now, if not stronger than we were in the earlier days. I would say stronger, in my personal opinion, and that's every aspect of what we are now is stronger. We're a stronger live band. We're much more. We're much stronger as writers and composers and as musicians. I think it's we've learned a lot and we've gotten better and we know what works and doesn't work. But that being said, we're not perfect either. So each new record is a new challenge, and we try to push it that much further. So it's a constant evolution. We'll never get there, and that's the point. You never will. There's no perfection in this in art,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like with every new album too, you give fans more of like I mean your repertoire is increasing, so it gives fans more of a range of music to pick from rather than just listening to the same couple of albums that were people liked when they came out in the early days. So I think that's important too. And in case if people don't even like an album, like they could just wait for a couple of years and there'll be another one. So that's the best part.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, and each one of our records is very different from the next. I mean, they're all very much Immolation for sure, but each one is different. Each one sounds different, has different production values, different moods, different feelings. But it's Immolation, from start to finish. At least, we still have that line of continuity through all of our releases, and I think our fans at least respect us for that. And yeah, and you ask fans, and everybody has a different favorite. Some people favor the earlier stuff because that was the first thing they heard by us when they were younger. Some people, newer fans, like some of the newer material. Some people like the mid. So you get different responses when you ask people that question, which I think is great, man. I mean, I'm very humbled that people really like our entire catalog and like different aspects of it for different reasons. So that's very cool, man. You can't ask for anything more, really, I think.
Right, exactly. So in terms of the music on this album itself, I mean, Nuclear Blast sent me the promo, and I was listening to the whole thing, and I think it's darker and kind of even slower and more epic than at least the last album. And as you said, it's a constant evolution. So would you say that this was the kind of the evolution that happened on this one?
Absolutely.
Mm.
And, each album, like I've said before in interviews, each album is very reflective of where we were at that moment in time, So whereas Kingdom was a very straightforward and aggressive sounding album, dynamically, it was really just a punch in the gut. And this album has a lot of that as well. It's more intense in some ways, but it also has a lot more of, like you said, some of those big, majestic, epic sections, very dark and majestic. It has those big multi-layered parts. It has a lot of the extremely fast stuff. It has a lot of the slower, more hypnotic, dirgy, haunting stuff. So it has all the elements of all of our releases, and every song I think on this record captures each one of those elements in its own way. So I think that's what's unique about this record. It just kind of rolls our entire catalog together, and it kind of articulates all of these elements individually in each of these songs. And so far the response has been very positive, and yeah, I mean it's kind of overwhelming. You never we write these things and we sit on them for months and months before anybody gets to hear them, and we've been listening to these songs for some of them for over a year and a half now. So it's kind of old news to us. So to get fresh opinions and perspectives on the material now is really cool and very refreshing, and it kind of gets us psyched up to get on the road now.
Right, exactly, man. And yeah, as you said, you have to be excited for yourselves to be going out on the road and having new music to play. So that's why this new album is crucial for you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm really, I was just practicing. I'm trying to squeeze in some rehearsal in between the interviews. So, just going over the new songs for me is like so exciting. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy the new songs, and it's fun like playing them. And, I find myself playing the newer songs 2, 3, 4 times in a row, as opposed to the older songs that we have in the set now. We're just going through them once and like, okay, I got this one down. But the new songs are just fun, so I just enjoy playing them.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned about the multi-layered, like the epic arrangements. So did that just come from the four of you recording in the studio, or was that any other additional, things done in the studio to achieve that sound,
Oh, that's just us. I mean, it all comes from Bob, and Bob writes all the music, and we really started experimenting with the multi-layered guitar sections back, I think, on the third record. I think No Jesus, No Beast was the first song that really had that overlay section, over the main verse sections, And it was when Bob did it back then at the time, I loved it. I said, "Wow, that's really cool. You have your bass rhythm, and then you have this second rhythm on top of that creates a whole different dynamic, and it really gives it more depth, and it makes it much bigger, And so, yeah, I mean, over the years we've kind of toyed with that, on every record. But I think on this record, there's a lot more of that because it just sounds so. It sounds bigger than it actually is. And, really, it's all done in the studio, and it's just multiple guitar layers. Some of these songs may have 4 or 5 different guitar tracks, and, it is tricky to replicate live, so we really have to sit down and figure out now, what each guitar is going to be doing to kind of get the maximum impact live, because if you're not doing it right live, you're going to lose that whole feel, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's the only challenging part. When he's actually writing these parts and, he's sending us the songs via email, and you listen to these sections, I'm always blown away because it just sounds so much bigger. It sounds like a huge orchestra of guitars. It's
Right.
very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think, if I'm not wrong, you've kind of gone with the same like support staff on this one, even with the cover artist and the same studio, the same producer. So
Yes.
is that what you do to kind of keep the continuity that you mentioned earlier with, that people can identify with?
Yeah, it seems to have worked. I mean, we've used Paul Orfino now for 8 of our releases and the 2 EPs. So we've been using Millbrook Sound since Failures for Gods, which was the first time we went to Paul's studio. And when we met Paul, we immediately clicked. Paul is just such a super person, man. He's so down to earth. He's so warm and welcoming. He's really one of the nicest people we've met, on this journey, and it's always a pleasure for us to go up to his studio. It's more like a vacation, because it's a perfect environment. It's a very small town, and it's very remote in the sense that we're kind of disconnected from a lot of the day-to-day nonsense that we have to deal with. So, man, it just works. And Paul is great. He's very, he's been in the business for years, and he's worked with so many rock and roll and jazz and blues greats. So he knows his stuff. So we never worry about that end. So he always really gets us the sounds we need during the recording process. And then since Majesty and Decay, we've teamed up with Zach Oren to do all the mixing and mastering. And the first record he did was Majesty. And I think from Majesty to Atonement, including Kingdom and the Providence EP, he's really added an entirely new element to the Immolation sound, So it's kind of like combining both worlds. It's like combining the old school, more organic world that Paul offers, and it combines the newer, more forward looking world that Zach has to offer, because Zach's a younger guy. He's more connected to the more modern metal sound. You know what I'm saying? So I think the two perspectives blended really work really well with us. I mean, you got to remember, kids are always the first to critique a band's production. You got to realize this stuff is very challenging to kind of mix and produce and to get right. It's very dense, it's very layered, it's very extreme. There's a lot going on, and it's very hard to kind of achieve that balance, especially when you consider the fact that you're working a lot of times against deadlines and you only have so much time. So it can get challenging and very tricky, and sometimes frustrating, especially when you run out of time and you're not quite where you need to be, but you kind of have to settle. So with this album, I think Paul and Zach together nailed it. Zach crushed the production on this one. He really did a good job. One of my favorite albums, I think, in our entire history. I mean, production-wise, it's just really good. All the instruments have room to breathe. Nothing's kind of stepping on anything else. It's big, it's epic, it's dark, it has a very cool feel, and it's not mechanical or overproduced sounding. Like we had issues with the drums, for example, on Kingdom of Conspiracy, and that was one of the first things we addressed moving forward with this record. So we do take everything into consideration when we do start the next cycle, the recording cycle. So
Right, right. That's awesome, man. And talking of touring, you have some stuff coming up in North America, of course, with the Cavalier Brothers. So what kind
yes.
of history do you have with them? Touring in the past or things like that.
Well, honestly, Sepultura, as our fans know, have been a huge inspiration on this band. Early Sepultura, the EP, Morbid Visions, up to Schizophrenia, those three releases to us really were inspirational. Sepultura back then was just savage and raw, and they brought something completely different to the table than what we had experienced up to that point. So they were just one of those bands that we just kind of latched on to and really was very excited to kind of move forward in our own direction, after hearing that type of stuff. And they were instrumental in just kind of nudging us down that path. And so for us, it's a absolute honor to be on this tour, to share the stage with two of these guys that really helped us find our way back then. And we have, I've seen, Sepultura and Soulfly throughout the years, but I've met Max and Igor back during the Beneath the Remains days. So I don't know if they remember us, but they were very cool and very gracious back then. So I'm really excited to just be part of this tour, man. It's just an honor that we were even asked to do it, and I'm just excited. I'm excited to kind of potentially reach out to some new fans with our music, and I'm excited to kind of show our stuff to the old school fans that are also going to see us as well as the Cavalier brothers. So it's going to be very cool for us.
Right. And you're obviously going to get a shorter set than you would on a headline tour. So does that make you even more excited for the tour, just to kind of really put on a killer set in a short amount of time and just leave no stone unturned?
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
you made a very good point. I mean, it is. Being in that main support position is great for us because you have a shorter amount of time to shine. So that means you really have to craft a set list to kind of have maximum impact in a short amount of time. So I think we are going to focus heavily on the newer songs with this run, and I understand that the album will not be out for the first week or two, but I think these new songs will appeal to a live crowd, in every sense. So we're just excited to go heavy with the new material. We're of course going to incorporate some of the older songs in there, but I think it'll be a well-rounded set. If we can get half new material and half old material, I think we'll be gold. So I'm imagining we'll have anywhere between 40 and 50 minutes for this. So that's kind of what we're focusing on right now.
That's awesome, man. I'm sure people will be looking forward to that. Ross, I think that's pretty much all I had for this interview, man. Great talking to you again, and we'll see you on that Cavalier tour.
Awesome, Andrew. Great, and I hope to meet you then again,
Y-
man.
y-
So thanks again. Great interview.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, man. Glad you liked it. We'll take care.
Thanks,
All
thanks,
right.
man.
Yeah.
Bye bye.